Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Hellboy 2019.
It's the official name.
Not Del Toro Hellboy, John, because he made a movie about fish love, and now he doesn't have to make Hellboy movies anymore.
No,
okay?
That's true.
He can do what he wants.
Fucking Nemo.
I'll be your host this evening. My name is Eric. I may have said that, but if not, joining me tonight, first up, coming to us from Chicago, Illinois, he's the resident alcoholic here at Bloody Good Horror. Please welcome Joe.
What's up, people?
And
what's up?
Confusingly, also the resident, organizer of running races, which is like a cognitive dissonant thing, I guess, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
You gotta balance the things out.
Yeah, that's true. Next up on the show, coming to us from Atlanta, Georgia, please welcome Cece back to the show.
I'm melting. That's
Cece,
how hot it is
Cece,
here.
how many years will I say that before you stop rolling your eyes at me?
Never.
Okay,
because as someone who lives in Atlanta, it's required that you roll your eyes when someone says Hotlanta.
Okay. We'll never change. I like it. Next up on the show, coming to us from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hi!
And last up tonight, my hetero life partner, you might say. The wind beneath my wings. Haven't used that one in a while, John. He is the business manager at BloodyGoodHorror.com. That means he manages the business. He's coming from Manhattan, New York City, and he's got a doorman. Those are the most important points about his life. Please welcome John to the show.
You know everything there is to know now. So,
I got a door, man.
I have spent more time thinking about what it must be like to live with a door, having a doorman, than you could possibly imagine, John. It's just a life I don't understand.
I gotta say, I don't know. A couple places I lived in Jersey had them, and I fucking hated it.
Well, I don't understand. What's the downside?
It seems like a lot of
saying
forced,
hello.
It seems like a lot of forced politeness, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
See, good doormen know that their job is to basically treat you however you want to be treated. Some people don't say hello to them; they just walk by.
Wow.
You
I'm
mean
very
it
friendly.
is to be seen and not heard, is what you're trying to say.
No, BGH's favorite doorman, Edwin, came back. He was on. I don't know. He was gone for a little while. I didn't want to get into it why he was gone.
Because you don't care.
No, because it's not appropriate to pry, CC.
I don't like to think of.
He has a personal life.
I don't like to think of you as a person. If you could do me a favor and just don't tell me anything personal.
No, but we
I want to
talk
preface
about
his
horror
quote-unquote
movies.
personal life with, we met him, and within 3 minutes, he was, nagging us all to, sign up for his Instagram account.
Oh, stop.
He's an amazing
We
photographer.
talk about horror movies several times a week, and it's lovely, and we have a nice time.
I
And
would
he
li-
tells me about stuff that he's seen, and I tell him about stuff that I'm watching.
I would
and,
like
it's
to
a good time.
I would like to do a Patreon exclusive interview with him, John, where we only talk about your interactions with him.
He would probably be down for it. We could ask him.
No, based on my experience
As
with
long
him,
as you plug his Instagram.
I think you would. Yeah. Do it
I
for
don't
the,
remember if he had an accent, but in my head, he has an accent. And
Yeah.
I just assumed, oh, Mr. Shars? Yes.
No,
Big Trump supporter.
he has a New York accent. It's not.
I think he would do it for the gram, is all I'm saying, John. Anyway, we're here tonight to talk about Hellboy. I'm really excited about this movie, John. Every once in a while, a train wreck comes along the BGH paths that is just so exquisite in its insanity that it's like chef's kiss, and I'm very excited to break this down tonight.
We should also tee up that you were the driving force behind watching this film.
Yeah,
and not because you knew it was a train wreck ahead of time.
I don't know.
No. You were into this. You were ready.
He was in despite the train wreck aspect.
Yeah.
He didn't really care one way or the other.
And every once in a while, I end up liking a train wreck, and then I get to be high and mighty and pretend like I'm the one person who likes it. So
I like this.
So I figured it was a win-win either way.
Yeah, fair.
Either I get to pick it apart, or I get a hill to die on, and that's my number one favorite thing. So
There you go.
Before we get to that tonight, though, as per usual, we got a little bit of housekeeping going on. Mr. Joe.
Yeah, what's up, man?
You are, I sold you short there in the intro, but you're really the event planner of BGH. Is that safe to say?
I like that.
The BGH
That's a lot of...
spooky wedding planner.
Yeah. I would love to. I mean, offer's still out there, folks. I am an ordained minister. I will marry you.
Wait, aren't you marrying somebody?
Yeah, one of our listeners, John and I right now are scheduled to go to Pittsburgh, 2020 to marry one of our listeners.
Amazing. Are you guys gonna
Wow.
Very
share?
excited about.
Are you guys gonna share a hotel bed?
Yeah, a broom
Hopefully.
closet, I think is the
Gotcha.
the technical term, but yeah.
Joe, tell me briefly about the two very special Bloody Good Horror Spooky Time events going on this October and September.
Yeah, we've got two very exciting things. First one is what we're calling Spooktoberfest, which is happening the weekend of September 21st. Friday, September 21st, we're having a get together for our patrons, Patreons, as the kids call it. Any level, if you sign up, you get invited to that, and there's details when you do sign up, so you can come to Chicago and get some free drinks and apps. We'll be featuring a new shirt design by one Miss Cece, and she can talk about that in a second. And then Saturday, that's September. Oh wait, I might have my dates off. September 20th is the Friday meetup for the Patreons, and September 21st at 4 o'clock at Crown Liquors here in Chicago. We're having what we call Spooktoberfest. It's going to be a trivia event. Open to everybody this time around. We're not doing like kind of a cover charge, but there will be a small fee to get in on a trivia. But if you don't want to do that, just come hang out with us. We'll have some of our merch for sale, including that shirt that CC created. And it should be a really good time. There's more info on the site, bloodygoodhorror.com. And yeah, we hope to see you guys all there. And then the other thing we have going on is October 19th, that whole weekend is our second annual Bloody Good Horror virtual 5K. We'll have info up on the site soon about that, but pretty much it's the same deal as last year. You go out, you run 5K, you send us in your time, and if you're in the continental U.S., we'll send you a medal. If you're not, we'll just send you some good cheer and stuff. But because of shipping problems we had last time, we can only offer it to the folks in these beautiful United States. But we encourage everybody to join in. And Cece, did you want to talk about your shirt design, because it is super, super awesome?
Sure.
I don't know what to say.
Y'all, Cece's bringing her spooky talents to bear on the next BGH shirt. It's very exciting.
I mean, I appreciate that everyone's stoked about it. I really like it. I don't know how to really talk about it without like describing it, but we'll say it's very witchy. It's very simple and medieval. So, there's
I think it's very on brand for Oktoberfest too, which I'm very excited.
Yes, it's very on brand for it's definitely not as I don't know how to describe our other shirts, but it's very simple and to the point.
I think John
it allows you to live deliciously.
I think John and Eric said it that like it's not super horror-y, so I feel like this is one you could actually like wear to work if t-shirts are allowed at your office.
It's like very much. I don't know how I might just. You know what it made me think of? CC was As Above, So Below when I saw it.
Yeah. There's
like
some witch influences,
yeah,
some
it's
As Above, So Below influences, some tarot influences.
Arcane, was that a word?
Arcane, yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
Blood magic. There's like we
I think he just used John's word of the day.
We did
Eric
some
is just saying words now.
Yeah.
We did some back shaving in this process. It's very intensive. You have to sit.
I used back shavings to draw it.
You have to sit in a circle for like 6 months and pee yourself, and then you drink some.
And guys, I want to tell you, I appreciate that. I feel very summery now that you got done with the back shaving.
I appreciate everyone's contributions.
But we're all very excited. So what's the deal with that, Joe? So basically that'll be available at the event, and then are patrons going to get that?
Yeah, so what is it, John? I think it's $10 and above. You get the new t-shirt, right?
Yeah. All of our $10 patrons will be getting the new t-shirt, and it will be available to everyone at the event for purchase.
And then shortly after, we'll have it up on our TeePublic. But this one will actually have like the branding for the 2019 Spooktoberfest. And then I think when we put it up on TeePublic, we'll probably take that off because it just won't make sense. But, there you go.
Very nice. Did you mention the race?
I sure did.
Cool.
Thanks for listening.
No, I just wanted to say like I wanted to just put out just say thank you to everybody who's supporting us on Patreon. A lot of people have been there since we launched in 2014, and we're trying to do these events to sort of build, help foster the community, but also like give back and give something for people to participate in, and sometimes some like swag for people who've been supporting us all these years. But just know, like, if you're supporting us, like, especially as our lives all get crazier and we get older, we have more going on. Like that support is very much like the engine that keeps us going. I think not just monetarily, but also it's like sort of, it's like monthly moral support. It's like, these people want you to keep doing your thing. And so I think like, I just want to thank everybody for
Sounds
keeping
like
us
a
going.
threat. Like this is
No,
if there's no patrons.
I want
sorry,
people to
guys.
know that it means a lot to us, John. Is all. I was trying to have a real sincere moment here, John.
I was kidding. It does.
I don't think you were. Hey, Joe.
Yeah, what's up, man?
You know when I'm my most sincere?
When you're lying in John's arms.
Well, I mean that goes without saying. But I was gonna say when I'm drunk.
Oh, hey.
I'm a very happy drunk. I like to put my arm around people and tell them my feelings.
Hmm.
So with that said, can you tell us what this week's beer is?
Beer guts.
Oh, Hellboy, the 2019 reboot that we've all been clamoring for. I'm not going to get into details, but just know there's some giants and there's some exciting things that happen here, sort of. John will synopsize, I'm sure, but because of certain events in the movies, I picked a beer from the good folks at Scorched Earth Brewing Company. That's in Algonquin, Illinois. Not far outside of the city of Chicago. If you're coming into town a little early, you could take a trip out. And this beer is their Giant Killer. Oh, likes it.
Damn.
If you missed it, this beer is their Giant Killer, which is an IPA. Fairly straightforward, a lot of hops in the flavor. Really just kind of like a straightforward West Coast IPA is what the kids would probably call it. Nice clean finish though, not one that's going to kind of blow out your taste buds and ruin your afternoon. So I really like this. Scorched Earth is great. They don't distribute super far, but if you come out to the meetup, you'll definitely be able to find some of their stuff in the city. Yeah, not a ton to say about it other than everything they put out is good. This included. Comes in about 6.7% alcohol, so a little bit high up there. You might want to take an Uber around the city if you're feeling froggy after having 7 or 8 of these. And yeah, scorchedearthbrewing.com is their website, and big thumbs up from Joe. Yeah,
we'll allow it.
Thanks. I did the beer now, Eric.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you. I always appreciate what you bring to the show. Joe, what kind of drunk do you think you are? I have my own thought, but I'm kind of curious what you think.
I don't know. I'm definitely, I get very excited. Like I like to sing a lot.
Okay. I will say there's two different sides to the drunk Joe.
Yeah.
I was going to say drunk Joe gets a little judgmental.
It's
like drunk
That's
Joe.
Just Joe.
It's like
normal, I think.
Joe, but it's like drunk Joe likes to have fun, but if anyone else is like amped up just slightly too much, Joe's like side-eyeing you hard. Is what I would say.
Like, but I would say that's sober too.
It's just the way it's just accentuated. But I did forget there is the rusted root side of drunk Joe.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Normal,
I mean, I think the side thing is more just the New York Joe, where we don't like to see other people happy. Like it's.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get it. Great. All right,
Who
guys.
does this guy think he is having a good time?
Time to take him down a peg.
Yeah, that might just be more my family too. Like I remember my mother just like hating anyone whose like life was going well.
Listen, let's not get into it because the last time you told me a story about your mother, it literally destroyed my soul, and I don't want to hear anymore. So it involved bacon, is all I'm gonna say.
Oh yeah, well.
All right, guys, it is time. Let's take a quick break and discuss Hellboy.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big breaking TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. John Schnars.
Eric?
You're letting the hair grow out a little bit there, buddy. I like it. We're getting back into Winter Soldier territory, I would say.
I was actually just thinking it's getting a tad shaggy.
Yeah. Well, you know when it's time to tell, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm going to let you know. When you start getting that little flip up there, like the elf and the Rudolph there.
That's very, very.
Anyone else?
For me, it's
anyone else see it?
when you can not see my ears, like not intentionally, but like when the hair goes like so far, it's like over my ears. That's when I go.
Plus,
Do you dream of being a dentist?
Yeah.
I'll be
Herbie,
honest, John. With
is
that
that
haircut, I'm not comfortable with you saying not see.
Jesus Christ.
No,
No,
Come
no,
on.
that's
That's more of an Eric haircut.
No,
suggestion.
that's
real uncomfortable.
that's more when he gets it cut. No, John, I'm a little more like American History X. Joe. When Joe's talking about your haircut, he's talking more like Hitler Youth, like we're talking 30s.
Guys, I get it. All right.
No, I know.
It.
I just wanted to make sure it was punctuated. So there you go. John, despite your disheveled appearance, you know a lot of words.
I know some words. Yes.
You went to Duke.
Mm-hmm. True.
This is a true story. You worked in the Duke Special Books Library.
It was called the Rare Book Room. Yes, correct.
Oh God,
Special
it's
collections.
so pretentious. That just disgusted me when you said that. Anyway, you know words. It's the whole reason why you're here. Otherwise, I'm not sure why we would keep you around. But anyway, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, I think you're going to be excited. This might be my shortest word of the day. The word is fey. F-A-Y.
Mm-hmm.
Fey. And it means simply a fairy. What's interesting, to me at least, the origin here comes to us from the word fatum, the Latin fatum, which when plural, fata, it was used to describe the fates, legendary or mythical creatures. And so that kind of passes, as one might imagine, through Old French and English into fae. Fae, so it's sort of a literary version of fairy. Another word you might use to describe fairies. Yeah, because this movie, Hellboy, is just jam-packed with mythical things, characters from just all kinds.
It already made no sense, and then suddenly somebody's like King Arthur, and I'm like, fucking what?
That was legit 1 minute into the movie.
Yeah.
You know what's funny though?
I
wonder if this is a Neil Marshall thing, because like, do you remember? And is it Doomsday, where suddenly there's like a random group of like I don't know, people who've reverted back to medieval times, led by Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah, they go to like a Renaissance festival.
Dude,
in,
they
like,
should
the
have
middle of
got
the
him in
apocalypse.
this. They should have got him in this movie. That would have been amazing.
Is somebody listening to music? What is happening?
It's the word of the day music, Joe.
What? No.
Are you
It doesn't
kidding?
usually go on for that long, does it?
It does.
Hmm.
I mean, if John goes into the synopsis, I stop it usually. But
I don't think there's music for his word of the day.
John, who made this movie? Tell me a little bit about how it came to be, and then in what is probably going to be my favorite part of the episode tonight. Why don't you try to tell me what this movie's about?
Okay.
In as few words as
guys,
possible.
I was gonna say I'm very sensitive to the fact that I might be a little verbose in my descriptions. All right, so let's kind of get this all up front. Hellboy 2019, directed by Neil Marshall, and we should come back and talk about Neil Marshall because there's an interesting conversation to be had there. It is so. This is based obviously on the Hellboy comic, property. This was originally started as a sequel to Hellboy 2. There have been, for those paying attention, 2 previous Hellboy films directed by Benicio del Toro, Guillermo del Toro, excuse me. I wouldn't call them necessarily iconic, but they are films. They are out there. They did okay. Films. I don't know. I mean,
I think that they like weren't runaway successes, but very revered in the community of people who are into that kind of thing. Is what I would say.
Cult classics.
Yeah,
they're for sale on Amazon.
No, but in some ways, this is the underlying conversation to be had about Hellboy. Is like, why the hell are they trying to reboot Hellboy? But let's put that.
Well, because it was never gangbusters at the box office anyway, right? Like, it's not like a hot property. It's like a thing Del Toro, against all odds, made work and like kind of made some money. Like,
well, exactly my point being, like, what changed in the intervening years where they were like, oh, now people are really going to be here for Hellboy. Whatever. Long story short, Neil Marshall. This thing is written by like 50 million people. The screenplay ends up being by this guy Andrew Cosby. Whatever. We don't need to talk about him. It stars David Harbour as Hellboy. So that was the first swap. David Harbour is somewhat more famous now than he had been for a while due to Stranger Things. So yeah, I'll try to give you the quickest synopsis I can. We open with King Arthur, as Eric mentioned.
sure, why not?
There's sort of there's the little opening intro sequence where we see King Arthur fighting this witch played by Mila Jovovich, and he kills the witch, but she's immortal, so she can't really be killed. So he cuts off her head, he cuts up all of her body parts, and then they disperse them to the four corners of Britain, of the United Kingdom. Flash forward, we now have Hellboy. He is working as part of the BPRD. I'm not even going to hazard a guess as to exactly what that stands for, but it's essentially the sort of supernatural police force. It is run by his quote-unquote father, played by Ian McShane, which is basically the guy who found Hellboy and sort of raised him up. Essentially, Hellboy gets thrown into this confrontation with the Mila Jovovich character, who is being reassembled by a warthogged face thing. Maybe someone can explain to me what the deal is with that person. But this warthog person is trying to.
You forgot to mention a warthog thing doing a bad Idris Elba impression.
Well, it's more just like a Scottish accent. I don't know.
It is. It wavers. Like, because if I'm listening,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is an English warthog, and I'm like, no, he's Scottish.
I think it really was that guy's voice, though, right?
Which it wasn't Idris Elba's voice.
No, it's that guy who's in Empire. He played. You've seen him before.
Yeah. In any event, that guy is trying to put together Mila Jovovich so that she can regain all her powers and sort of remove a curse from him and yada yada yada. Meanwhile, Hellboy is sort of, because this movie was both conceived as a sequel and also then shot and released as a reboot, there's just a lot of this like backstory, and so we actually see Hellboy going through this crisis of conscience or sort of self-identity crisis where there's a prophecy about how he will bring about the end of the world, and that's sort of playing out in the background. Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the setup, and there's a lot of sort of comic book fight sequences and flashbacks along the way. Does that do it for you, Eric? Was that enough words? Do you want me to go a little longer?
It was fine.
Tell me.
It's fine. Listen, literally nothing you say can make this fucking movie make sense, so it's fine. We're just gonna keep going. Hey, Joe.
Hey, what's going on, man?
How do you feel about? Do you have any thoughts on the original two Hellboys, and what do you think of this thing?
So I never read any of the comic books, obviously, but I really enjoyed the first two movies. Like I was bummed when we found out like he wasn't, or Guillermo del Toro hadn't signed on for what would have been the third one. Because I mean, I think the originals are like, they're beautiful movies. Like the effects in there, like I just think they're really well done. So I was a big fan. So I was a little hesitant when this one popped up and I found out it wasn't him. Ron Perlman wasn't involved. Like they kind of took out all the stuff I enjoyed. They don't have some of the side characters from the first two movies. But I mean, I think this got some, okay buzz or okay reviews. So going in watching it, I had decent expectations. But I mean, Eric's already kind of hinted it. Like this thing is just a giant mess and all over the place. Like, you mentioned flashbacks,
and
but
listen,
I want to say
we have toddlers, so we know from well, you have a baby, but you know what I mean. We know giant messes all over the place.
Well, I have the 8-year-old too.
Yeah.
She's still, we didn't boot her out when the second
Still
one came.
messy. Seriously, 8 years. I'm still gonna be dealing with this. Great.
You mentioned flashbacks, and I want to say for like first of all, this thing is 2 hours long, and I want to say maybe 45 to an hour is just flashbacks. Like every other scene at one point feels like we're jumping back. One of them legit, and I think I was texting John when this came up, like one of them is verbatim like the plot from the original Predator movie, which like I think
You
John
were
and
very
I
upset.
There was
about it.
actually-
I was just
There was
John and
straight
I
up.
were joking back and forth. Like at a certain point, I thought it was going to be a goof, and they really were going to have the Predator come out.
I
but,
don't
like,
know that I
unfortunately, we
caught
didn't get
that specific part, but there was another movie too that I'm pretty sure his entire plot is crammed into this thing.
So I mean, there's a couple highlights, and we'll probably get into it. Visually, that I thought worked really well, but at the end of the day, like this thing just was a pretty big letdown, and I thought it like progressively got worse as it went on.
Casey.
So I read some of the comics. I was never a diehard. Hearing that this was going to be more like the comics, I was kind of excited. I really loved the first two movies from Del Toro as well. And I even think that the second movie was even better than the first movie, which is a rarity for sequels. So I was really impressed with that. Just like Joe, I was a little bummed that Del Toro wasn't going to be involved in this one. I really love David Harbour, but I didn't know what to expect from him coming out of it. The first trailers came out. Sometimes the trailer looked like maybe David Harbour's mask didn't fit quite right in the trailers. You know what I mean? But in the end, yeah, this movie's got a lot of problems. There are some really cool bits in it, though. There's some CGI stuff that's going on in here that happens that's really cool. There's some fight scenes that are really cool. There's bits and pieces of a good flick in here, but there's just so much else crammed in there. It's hard to follow. I really had a hard time focusing on this one. The internet was fighting really hard for my attention when trying to get through this one, just because it's kind of so broken up and all over the place.
I mean,
It's hard to get. It's hard to get a through line.
That's a really good point that I'm definitely gonna hit on. I think we'll all like reach at some point. Just like the pieces are there, not necessarily to like best Del Toro, but like you can't best Fish Boy, right? But like they had the pieces here, they just mucked it up so badly. CC,
Yeah, and ultimately, this is a movie with monsters and fighting monsters. It shouldn't be that hard.
that's got about 90 minutes of exposition in it.
Yes.
CC, what'd you think?
Yeah, I absolutely loved the two original Del Toro Hellboys. I am a huge fan, and I still watch them pretty regularly. So I was cautiously optimistic about this one, and it's not that it was bad, but it wasn't very good either. And like Casey said, this is a movie that is supposed to be about monsters, and just like they could have kept it super simple and I would have been super happy. But the like 45 minutes of the beginning talking about, look, I love Arthurian legends. I love all of that old shit, but I was so bored that, I was studying for an exam during the beginning of it because I was like, I will just do this until something happens. So, I don't know. I didn't mind David Harbour, that's his name, right, as Hellboy. I still prefer Ron Perlman, but I thought he did an okay job. I don't know. I think that they were just trying to cram too much, too many plot points and too many Easter eggs in it. And I think they were they were basically trying to make too many people happy. And that was their downfall.
Can't please all the people all the time, Cece.
No, you cannot.
No, you cannot. John, what'd you think?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess I'll be the defender to a certain extent of this movie.
Bring it.
I mean,
Yikes.
look, like it's very hard. What I will say is I love the character. Oh, and I've actually not read the comics. I've seen the previous two films. I really love the previous two films. Everything everyone said, I totally agree with. And if they had made this as a sequel to those films and kept everything the same, I actually think that this had a chance to be pretty good. The problem is that they clearly they just didn't know what the fuck they were doing with it, right? So they spend a ton of time doing the origin story and doing all of these flashbacks to like
But
Hellboy and
it's
like
so weird though how the origin story doesn't even start the movie. It's like you're almost 20 minutes in. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess they're just not gonna do it. Like that's cool. And then it was like, psych. Here's like this little another like non sequitur. We're gonna jump to this for 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
well, yeah, and look, like where this thing nets out is essentially as like a prequel to the Del Toro one because I mean whatever, it's somewhat of a spoiler, but like there's a coda to this
Mhm.
film where we see him meeting the amphibious character. I don't know what the hell the guy's name
Ape
is. I feel
Sapien,
bad.
and also
Yeah.
there's a great scene with him and Thomas Hayden Church in the credits. Like I thought that scene was funnier than anything in the movie.
So,
But
the-
but they're driving hard to the hoop for a sequel, which is hilarious after you've seen
yeah,
that movie.
it's well, exactly. At that point, you're like, what the fuck were they
You're
thinking?
like, really,
Um,
dude? Really?
My defense, and insofar as there will be a defense, is that the character is great. I actually think David Harbour does a really nice job, despite the fact that the script is like kind of completely all over the place. I laughed several times. Like several of the zingers and the one-liners totally work for me, but they work because the character works, and
Yeah.
because he's basically. I mean,
his
look,
delivery
the conceit
is
of Hellboy.
his delivery is really good. The character's so insane.
Yeah, but well, the conceit of Hellboy is always that he's basically a teenager, but
Mhm.
he's the devil or the son of the devil, and he's like huge, and so it's just humorous. And then as folks have mentioned, there's some really great visuals. I mean, there are scenes in this film that are very very good. It's just that in totality, it is incomprehensible, and
Yeah.
it does not have a clear sort of structure that gets you to a place where you're like, oh, cool, I have gone on a journey and there was an arc and the character developed. The character develops, but it's in fits and starts, and it's just so uneven that by the end you're like, fuck it,
I mean,
whatever.
okay, no bullshit, dude. There have to be 10 subplots in this movie. Like if you think about
Yeah.
just non sequitur scenes and flashbacks, right? Like even off the top of my head, it's like the whole lucha thing. It's like the secret society with the giants. It's like Mila Jovovich and her bullshit. This whole Warthog's backstory, Hellboy's backstory, the relationship with his father, his like being sad about being a demon and being scared that he's gonna cause the apocalypse. All right, that's just me naming 7 off the top of my head.
Yeah.
7 subplots, dude. Like as soon as this movie starts, it's throwing up red flags because it feels like it starts in the middle of a movie, and you're like, "Fucking what?" And immediately it's like it feels like a sequel. I felt like this was picking up with plots that I should know something about. And,
Yeah.
But what happens is it's like they want it both ways. They want it. It kind of reminded me of the Snyder Batman movie, and that like it didn't want to do the work to really set up the universe. So instead they throw you in it, and like Cece's saying, they just start throwing kind of references at you. But then it's like you can almost see the screenwriter or the director editor going like, oh, actually we just reference this thing, but we don't. The audience doesn't know what that is. Okay, here's a 90-second, really ham-fisted flashback with a narration to explain this to you. Okay, or let's just have this character sit here for 2 straight minutes and say, and it not only is it ham-fisted, but also just given the nature of the material, it's the silliest shit you've ever heard, right? Like this whole thing with this like stupid. I mean, a great example of this is this scene with the giants, and the giant fight is great. Like again, like when the movie gets
Yeah.
out of its own way, is where it really shines. And
Well, the
almost,
giant fight is, in my mind, that was the best action sequence in the film.
it almost, but it almost like brings into contrast how bad the rest of it is, because then like everything surrounding that, the stupid like cult, and like they come out of nowhere, their backstory is just shoved down your throat, and then they're gone from the movie, and it's not important at all after that. Like
Well, yeah,
literally,
they basically it tees up this whole like everyone wants to kill Hellboy, or it's not even, the joke is it's not everyone. It's just like some people want to kill Hellboy because of this prophecy about
Right.
him
Right.
bringing about the end of the world.
and like I swear, I'm not sure I've ever seen a worse written movie or like a more sloppier written movie on this show than this thing, because this thing has so clearly has the marks of too many cooks written all over it.
Yeah.
Like this is not
Well-
something that happens from one person's vision. Like you might get a bad movie from a person's vision, but you only get something this schizophrenic and all over the place when like 30 different people have input and nobody's the leader on the project.
And the joke of that is that you're talking about a property, and again, we should save the like who the hell is watching Hellboy 3 after the first two movies. Who's like clamoring for the, but you have this property that has a very long, well-established run of comics. This Mike Mignola, who is the creator, has been with this thing for a long, long time. They could have just picked any arc in the comics and made a movie out
But
of it,
even-
and it would have been more interesting.
Even
and,
that, though,
coherent than this.
Even that, though, I think everything you need is in this movie, okay? It needs to be very, very simplified down. They were clearly, like, very allergic to the idea of just straight up retelling the origin story like Del Toro did, but I think you needed to do it. If you're going to call it a reboot, just do it. Come right into it, and then tell a clear narrative about sort of Hellboy's... The main thread of this movie, and it should be the main focus, is the fear that Hellboy could cause the apocalypse, and him, this X-Men-esque thing of him feeling sympathy for other monsters and not knowing which side he's on, and that's it. Throw the rest of this movie out. You add a little bit of the tension with his father, and tell a more clearly narrative movie without all the flashbacks. And that's your movie. And keep in all these awesome action sequences. Like, I don't know if anybody's mentioned it, but the whole Baba Yaga thing, like,
Dude, that was so.
I mean,
I was
visually
impressed
incredible,
and terrified at the same time.
visually, but even
Yeah,
just
it
like
was
the
super creepy.
chicken house was incredible. This like giant house on chicken legs, and then you get in there, and the character work and her like physical acting is so
Dude.
great.
Well, and that apparently the chicken leg house thing is actually canonical for
Okay.
Baba Yaga.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
that's
know.
what
Yeah.
Baba Yaga lives in.
But-
She was, yeah, like that's her. That's part of her. Like it's an extension of her as a monster.
Like, I actually wouldn't be surprised to find out that there is a very decent movie that could be gotten out of this plus whatever was cut just through a re-edit. Like, just
Oh yeah.
go in
I
there,
think we all
go in,
talked
I
about
mean-
like
go in
this
there
would
with a
have been-
machete and like really hack this thing down to the core of what makes the story interesting and keep the action stuff.
This thing could have been like a really good Netflix series, right? Like
Yeah.
kind of split up into chunks
Dude,
rather
this
than
is like 10 seasons worth of material in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I agree with you. I think that making the comparison to Snyder's Batman is a really, really genius comparison because it's true. Like, I understand them wanting to I don't understand why y'all are
I was just-
laughing.
I was
but
very-
I
just thrown
just
out
there
the-
too much.
I
I
just
got-
feel like throwing out the genius word was something Eric said.
No,
but the,
listen, I accept it.
Oh Jesus. Christ.
well, anyway. But I mean, like, I understand wanting to start, clean slate, start over. Fine that you're gonna reboot it, but I'm with you. Like, if you're gonna, they do give us an origin. Like, they do go into the origin of Hellboy, even if it's just for a slight, like, 5-minute scene in this film. But I really think that like you said, if you broke it up and kind of focused on one area and you just kind of alluded to these, like, you could still have all these monsters in here without the subplot. Like, you could have him on his journey seeing these monsters. You don't have to have a fight scene with every single one of them to make a point. And I mean, I loved I should have looked up his name, but the like so he has his Alice, who is a seer, and then the other guy who transforms into the leopard monster.
Yeah, the guy from Lost.
Yes. I mean,
Daniel Day Kim.
Yeah.
yes. And I think he's a phenomenal actor, and I love that he's in it. But I mean,
That character
we don't.
is so pointless.
It's so pointless. I mean, you get like a random flashback of that he turns into something, but you could have just left it as like, is he part monster? Is he not? Like, you don't have to show all of your cards straight out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's
I mean,
what
they
happened here.
like
Well,
they
that's-
really want to have it both ways, and like
Yeah.
this movie is almost more like the dark middle chapter of a trilogy. Like, and my point about the Snyder Batman is that they want to throw you into an already established world and try to make you
Yeah.
feel for the character, and it doesn't work, especially with a character with this batshit crazy of an origin story. Like,
Right.
you've got to spend
Yeah.
more. You got to spend more time telling me who this guy is before I can care about his existential crisis. They go right into
Say,
it.
everybody knows who Batman is. I don't need a backstory for Batman. You can give me a
Right.
backstory.
No, but you know what I mean. It's
Hellboy
like
again.
it's like
not familiar.
But like they start throwing references at you, like, oh, Robin is dead in this universe. Like, okay, I guess I'm supposed to like care about that. Like,
Yeah. Well, some of the I mean, the origin story is hard because I get tired of seeing Batman's origin story over and
Right.
over. Spoiler alert: if you don't know, the Waynes die.
Yeah.
Fine,
He's an
fine,
we
then-
all
orphan.
know
That's
that.
all you need to
But
know.
then
Or,
fine,
yeah.
then you make it a sequel to the Del Toro ones and you call it a day. The
exactly.
problem is that in
Or
Hollywood,
you come up with a better way to introduce him and bring us into this movie instead of the middle of an Arthurian raid.
the problem is that in the like those in Hollywood time, those movies are ancient news, and so like they can't assume that people have even seen those movies. That's the
Yeah.
other big problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Joe. I interrupted you like 10 minutes ago.
I don't even remember. Oh, we were talking about the origin story of like his partner there, and like that's the one that really just like completely irked me because the entire thing is him and like a troop are in the jungle being picked off one by a predator. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck do you guys think you're doing?
It was among the laziest interludes I've ever seen. Well, I mean, look, I assume that Jaguar character comes from the comics because it's not in any of the previous films, and it would be weird for them to create something that specific and introduce it here.
It also just felt so lazy. Like you have all these other like we've talked about like really great kind of creature designs, and then you have a jaguar.
Well,
Yeah.
that's fine, but like the CGI on him, like he's a main
Yeah.
character. You couldn't spend more time on him and not on
Exactly.
like
It
It's
looked like that
I don't
shitty. What was that? Virtual Fighter, I think was like a game on the Sega Saturn.
it's like all polygons. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
what's
not to
weird is
mention, why
though
would you pick a Jaguar? Because you'd think the crowd you're going for this movie, if they hulk him out into, like CC said, a decent looking werewolf, everybody lost their shit.
yeah,
but what's weird is
exactly.
though it's not all bad. Some of it's borderline great, and then it's like though you'll cut to something else and you'll be like, did you guys not finish that part? Or like,
Yeah.
Well, and there's a few scenes like even when he's fighting, you can and I can't remember if it was with the giants because that was a great scene, but there's a few moments where like they like pan back out and you're like, did somebody not like airbrush over that? to kind
It's
of
like there's like a
put him
green
into
screen.
the background. You know what I mean?
I mean, like
It
I
cuts to,
love.
like hand drawn like storyboards.
Here's
like,
a-
Here's a great
weirdness
example.
happening here.
Here's a great example. Like I thought that the CGI. I mean, obviously all the Baba Yaga stuff was fantastic. I thought the
Yeah.
giants were pretty good, with the exception of maybe some of the wide shots. I loved Man Bear Pig, whatever the warthog guy was.
The changeling.
I loved him a lot, but like then at the end, so like Hellboy's father is like this weird like
Ectoplasm.
yeah, like marshmallow
vomit.
beast. That looked fucking embarrassingly bad. Like it's
Well,
so
it's
bad.
a cool concept. I get like the idea behind it because we've never seen ectoplasm as like an actual like form. So like that's super cool and it gives her character like some, agency of like I don't know, participating in this. But
Yeah.
Excuse me,
I'm
I've
with
seen
you,
Ghostbusters
it was
too.
horrible. It was so poorly
When they-
done.
When they didn't blend the edges of Al
Yes.
Swearengen's face onto it when they photoshopped
There's
it in.
Right.
so I will
Yeah.
I do want to say like positively because I have another real bad burn on this movie that I need to get in, but like here's what they're trying to do here that I really enjoyed. They're making a horror movie in a lot of ways. I think
Mhm.
there was maybe some discussion of this movie's horror cred, but it's like pretty horror-y. It's like
Well,
very gory.
yeah, it's
like he's straight
this
up
is
it's
well,
very
this was rated R, and the
Yeah.
previous films were PG-13.
there's a lot of monster gore. There's a lot of monsters in general in this movie, right? Like it very much leans into the demons and monsters kind of like
Mhm.
theme of these stories, which is great. It also just generally from an aesthetic place, I think they did a smart thing, which is like you're never gonna match that like beautiful kind of sublime beauty that Del Toro is like so good at, like ugly,
Yeah, because
but-
that's his trademark.
like ugly but really beautiful and like overpowering, right? So instead they go grimy, and I really like it. Like the Hellboy
Yeah.
makeup is super grimy. Like he looks really weathered and just filthy in a way that I like. Like even the way they do his horns. Like if you go back to those Del Toro movies, the character design stuff is great, but it's very slick looking. Like
Mhm.
this Hellboy is just feels dirty and gross. The monsters are dirty. There's tons of gore. I think that's a really
Yeah.
smart way to approach this. It makes it feel a little more like a B movie, which is great. And that's like honestly Neil Marshall's wheelhouse. Like that's the stuff that he's good at. So like lean into that. It's just it's obviously like it's unfortunate they couldn't like get it together in the larger picture. But my last major point about this that unfortunately is that we got to talk about my girl Mila Jovovich because
Oof.
she this is a war crime against acting.
It's an act of terror.
This is an atrocity towards thespians everywhere. I mean, and it's I even struggle to take it in a campy way because she's clearly trying so hard, and it is embarrassing. Like,
Yep.
and
I
you're
mean,
talking
I would
about
argue she's always
bloody.
this bad
you're-
though.
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't think
yes,
she's great
but-
in general.
But Alice in the so obviously, right, like I'm the #1 Resident Evil apologist at Bloody Good Horror. However, lately I do question
Probably anywhere.
lately I do question how much like modern day Eric would have patience for those movies if they kept coming out, which we're going to find out eventually. But like the Alice character is very similar to like Keanu Reeves in The Matrix in that she's very much a cipher. Like she doesn't have to do much. She just says monotone things and like kicks ass, right? This movie's asking her to be like this dramatic, scary demon witch lady, and bro, this is not in her. This is outside of her talent skill level. It is. She is so bad, you guys.
She doesn't even. It's her face doesn't even look normal. Because there's several scenes where it's just her head, and even her face. You're like, what the fuck face is she doing right now? She's in this box.
I didn't think she was that terrible, but at the same
No,
time, I don't
she's
think
so
she was
bad.
any different than any of the other flicks we've seen there.
Well, I
seen
think
her
it-
in.
I
So
think
she was
it's-
pretty much on par.
I
Your
put-
expectations were appropriately.
But I
set.
think it's more just what it's asking her to do. Like she's trying to be dramatic in this very like gothic witch kind of way, and it's like, bro, come on, dude. Her husband didn't even direct this. Like, how did she end up in this movie?
Fair enough.
I don't know. She wears 45 a lot better than I do, though.
Well, hey, we should all be so lucky. But my God, it's so. I mean, like, actually, I'll take that back. I do think that her performance alone could add a certain camp factor to this movie. Like, you watch this movie like with a lot of beers and some friends, like, you know,
Well,
if you
Ian
have some.
McShane is also just chewing scenery.
Oh,
I
he's-
mean,
Oh,
every,
yeah.
every scene he's in, he's yelling. It's just him
Honestly,
yelling.
all I kept thinking was like, what were the actors? You know, I really wonder what goes through actors. Like, do they know they're in a hot mess when it's happening? Because like there was that Schnars. You pointed us to the Wikipedia Schnars, and like David Harbour has this very like political, but I thought like telling quote about basically there being like too many people with creative say in the thing. But I wonder is like, is that something you know on set when you're just spouting this nonsense and you're like, dude, I'm Stranger Things. I thought this was gonna be my break, and this is just turning into a complete train wreck.
He's looking around. He's like, "Ugh, Mila Jovovich. What the? Oh God!"
Oh,
Well, yeah, it also it had the
by the
feeling
way,
of them having
you know who would
Ian
have made?
McShane for 10 days.
By the way, you
so-
know what would have made an awesome damn witch? Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, come
Fair.
on.
Well, I think the biggest problem with Mila Jovovich as the evil queen here, though, because if you look back, even like in Hellboy 2, which was my favorite of all of them, they had that the elf guy, the evil elf guy, and everything. He looked like an elf. He kind of looked Lord of the Rings ish, but by God, he was menacing.
Yeah.
She wasn't menacing in
Yeah.
the slightest.
No.
Yeah.
Even the warthog, which is like he's so funny, he's so goofy.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
like
and I think that was intentional, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
but he's supposed to be.
It was,
I mean,
it was
again,
very much what was it, the two warthogs from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
all I kept thinking the
Rock-
entire time.
Rocksteady.
Toka and Razar.
Rocksteady, a character,
Rocksteady and Bebop.
a character,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
character. Ironically, yeah, Bebop I think was the warthog. A character, ironically, that Michael Bay could never get right in the movies. This movie did accidentally.
It's true.
That's a whole other thing. Like his whole origin thing is another random flashback subplot, and it's
Well,
insane.
well,
It's
fine,
insane.
But it's confusing that like it's confusing that as a changeling he's supposed to have tried to take the place of Hellboy's friend Alice. So that's how Hellboy met Alice. But then at the same time, like there's too many. If you're gonna focus on that, then that should have been the only route.
that
of
whole
this.
plot, and I think Joe might be with me on this. That whole plot reminded me of Boss Baby.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Boss
That's
Baby.
the whole thing
so
with
I don't
Boss
know about that
Baby.
one.
That's the whole
the
thing
whole
with
thing
Boss
with
Baby is
Alice
they're
really
trying to like get
confused
into
me,
the
too.
they're trying to get into the homes of the it's a whole thing.
The,
Oh.
the whole thing with Alice confused me too, because like we kind of get this origin story, which happened like I don't know if she was like 15 or what, but like that's the last time he saw her, and then the next time she pops up, she's the one person that he trusts, and like they're like joined at the hip immediately.
She immediately pulls a gun on him and jokingly threatens him, and then 90 seconds later in the movie he goes, "She's the only person I trust," and you're like, "Excuse me." Meanwhile, like,
well,
meanwhile,
I thought that was because there were like he was friends with her parents.
But
too.
again, this is like one of those things that the movie like sort of mentions offhand and expects us to just really feel as a real organic thing this movie has, where it's not. It's just like thrown away exposition. Oh, this is my best friend. We're best friends. We do best friend stuff.
It's funny because I don't know. Had you guys seen
lots of activities?
Had you all seen that actress before? Because
I saw her in American Honey.
She seemed like the British Joey King to me. That's all I could think of the entire time.
Oh God, is this a thing now?
Wait, is she British? Because it looks like she was born in the U.S. Now I'm super confused because I was gonna say I was like, I thought she could be she felt to me like someone who she read the script and was just like, is this even a character? Because she was acting. There was acting. She was saying lines, but it was
definitely on film. I saw her.
There was no. It didn't feel like it was. There didn't feel like there was a character there, I guess is what I would say.
I mean, I definitely don't think that her character was fleshed out at all, for sure.
I don't know.
But hold up here, because this is how much I struggled with concentrating. So you're saying the girl with ghost vomit was the baby that Bebop had replaced?
Yes.
Oh, I missed that.
I don't understand.
Because she keeps saying that the whole reason she has powers, and remember at the end she like starts punching the spirit out of things.
A lot of people,
is because when she was kidnapped by the fairies, when she was returned, she had all of these extra powers.
Yeah, and it says she was born and basically grew up in Texas. Why is she doing a accent? And I mean, I understand the movie takes place in the UK.
This movie has a problem.
Why is Miller doing a UK accent?
I was going to say lots of British people do American accents, so you know.
Other people that were a part of this were not doing British accents. Like it was very.
I don't know.
Oh my God.
I just remembered that I was texting Schnorrs my thoughts in real time as I was watching this movie, so I just wanted. This is a dramatic reading of my thoughts last night. My first text, 8:19 p.m. What in the ever-loving fuck is happening in the first 5 minutes of this movie? The first 5 minutes. And then he said, wait for the next 115. And I was like, is any of the stuff referencing the old movies? And then I was just like, the exposition is relentless. Why is this woman telling Hellboy how he was born? That scene, she literally is telling him his own origin story. Like, obviously it's because she has a detail he doesn't know, but I'm pretty sure he knows he came from hell, right? Like she's telling him as if he's the audience, and I was like, this is batshit.
Dude, hold on.
You mean I'm not white?
But she doesn't. Hold on. What you're describing is origin story number 1.
Yeah.
Because then the film comes back 100 minutes later and gives you a second origin story. It is ridiculous. My
next text a few minutes later was all caps. OMG, the pig with the British accent. And then a minute later, oh sorry, Scottish. And then I counted the first 20 minutes of this movie is exposition, and I am not exaggerating. It is straight info dump for 20 straight minutes.
This is the thing. This is the biggest knock on this movie. I think you could probably charitably say 100 of 120 minutes is exposition dump. They're telling you things that are happening.
My other text you just reminded me of this, but the first 40 minutes, it feels like it keeps starting over, and every time it starts over, it's a different movie.
Yeah.
I like to think of that warthog as like some sort of political stance on Brexit, or like they're trying to make a statement there. I think that's what they were
I mean, he
for.
did have kind of like a lower class accent. It was very like Guy Ritchie movie.
Cockney, but sort of Scottish at the same time.
I'm telling you.
Do we want to do a quick thing on Neil Marshall here?
I'd rather not.
So, I mean, but here's my thing with Neil Marshall, right? So his first 3 films are. So his first 2 films, Dog Soldiers and The Descent, that is like, you're coming out of the gate really, really hot. I actually will stand by Doomsday.
Descent, John, you might say The Descent is on the top 25 films From Blood to Good Horror of that decade.
Yes, of the previous decade. I think it was number 2, if I remember correctly.
Incredible.
I mean, it is a classic. It has gone down in history. This is 14 years now as a classic horror film.
God, that hurt when you just said that. Oh my God.
I love Doomsday. Doomsday's one of the very first movies we ever did for the show. I really enjoyed that
I
movie.
would say
I haven't seen it since.
Doomsday is closer to this than it is The Descent, though. I think it's goofy in a
Sure.
similar way.
But he felt like someone who was doing like he had some interesting shit going on, and so in any event, then you get Centurion, which I don't know if anyone tried to watch. I did try to watch, and it is not good. He directed something called Tales of Halloween, which I've never seen. He has this whole like then second career as basically a very high level TV director, and when I say high level, he did two 2 years of Game of Thrones.
So we should say
iconic Game of Thrones episodes.
this is always a thing I bring up with him. He directed Castle Black, which is When the Wildlings Attack the Wall, which to me is
well, they have it here.
Spoiler alert, guys. All right, haven't watched it yet.
It's Blackwater and then the Watchers on the Wall.
That's what it is. So it's
yeah.
okay. I didn't know he did Blackwater. That's a pretty good one too, but obviously like pretty limited in scope. Like when they did that attack on Castle Black, it was like a lot. It was the biggest thing they had done to date. Top 5 Game of Thrones episode. It's just incredible action, like doing a lot with not a lot of money. It was before they were like really pumping money into that thing. That's to me like probably the best thing he's done in a while.
Yeah,
Wasn't he a showrunner on something for like the first season and then walked?
I don't see anything necessarily listed. So he's worked on a ton of stuff. So Black Sails, Constantine, Hannibal, Westworld. He did an episode.
Was there
Lost in Space.
Did there
This
end
is
up?
all fascinating.
Did there end up being a Constantine show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What was it on?
No, I guess my point is like if you had asked
No.
someone in like 2010, is Neil like what's the deal with Neil Marshall? You would have said like, oh, this dude he's legit, he's up and coming. I don't know, it's weird. He's like never really touched that Descent level.
I think he's just he's like a TV guy that also can direct the hell out of a cult film every once in a while, but he's not. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's ever. It seems like maybe The Descent was maybe his one brilliant thing, you know.
He can handle action, right? I mean, to your point on the Game of Thrones episodes he did, The Watchers and Blackwater are both very heavy action episodes. And the best parts of Hellboy is the action, at least for me. So
100%, yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird. Because I still have this very positive association with Neil Marshall, and I need to revise my priors, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
I just think he's a guy. Listen, man, he's working. He's doing work. He's getting jobs. You know, it's like I think that this is a tough thing. Like like when Rob Zombie, right? Like Rob Zombie comes out with a House of a Thousand Corpses, and it's like flawed but really promising, and you want him to be better. And then we've been following some of these guys' careers for, like you just said, like 15, sometimes 20 years in the case of Zombie, and it's like it's a weird thing to think of. I think when we see somebody make something really good in the horror genre, we just root for them because we want them to make more cool shit.
Yeah.
And so when they kind of just settle into these workman-like careers, I think it's difficult for us to process a little bit because we want that person to like be the horror maestro. You know what I mean? And so
and you see some of his like trademarks come through in this with like that, because for me, Neil Marshall's always outside of The Descent. It's about the fight scenes. And he's really good with kind of the combat and the action and stuff. And you saw that in Game of Thrones. And you see that with like the giant fight and things like that. So there's pieces of it there.
Yeah.
So he is currently listed on IMDb, rumored to be working on something called Skull Island, Blood of the Kong. So there you
Why
go.
was there an old eye roll there?
Is that like an asylum thing?
It's
That's what it sounds like, right?
it's honestly, I read the description on IMDb and I actually understand less about what this movie might actually be about.
Huh.
So yeah.
Interesting.
I
It's
could
a-
listen to
it's a-
John read Neil Marshall's IMDb for like the next 45 minutes. Just keep going through
I
that.
don't know. I find Neil Marshall an interesting character, I guess. So,
Apparently.
I'm the only one, Joe. Fine, I get it. I get it.
No, continue.
Noted. Okay.
Does he have any special thanks on any DVD credits you'd like to read off?
Jesus.
Fun fact about The Descent, John. I remember like I bought the DVD and I didn't realize it, but I bought a full screen DVD. I still have it. It makes me so angry. I don't think I've ever watched it.
I've done that with a few movies and it enrages
Well,
me.
because
yeah.
it came out in like 05 or something, like at the time when they were still, that was really the HD transition. So it wasn't like
Yeah, you had to buy like one or the other. Yeah.
or they were like
Yeah.
double-sided, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You had to look for letterbox, then they charge you more.
Man, crazy town.
All right. Let's say we wrap this up, huh?
Okay, sounds good, Joe. Thanks. I gotta load a new bumper in though before we do it. You guys want to talk about shows?
I was gonna say
Dude.
the Baba Yaga so Baba Yaga, if you read IMDb, was, since we all really liked Baba Yaga, is played by a dude in the costume, and then there was a lady who did the voice of Baba Yaga. That dude that did the all the movement and everything like that was also in The Void that we covered on here. And there's some really good videos of him doing that creepy upside down backward shit. He's pretty awesome.
It's so good. That whole scene is really cool. I mean, if you can ignore like the fact that none of the words being said make any sense.
Yeah.
Eric,
yeah.
I really
sorry,
will
go
say, I don't know how much we touched on it, but I really did like Harbor in this. I think he's a very charming dude, and I think he's got a certain roguishness about him that's kind of perfect for this part. It's just too bad that it's like, look, Perlman is Perlman, right? It's like they're big shoes to fill, but so are Del Toro's. But if you're gonna do it, I feel like he's a really good like other choice.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he did a great job. It was just I think he did a great job with what he was given.
Yeah, he needed a better script to really.
Yeah.
I did really love the visual at the end when he's got the full horns and they're on fire and the sword's on fire. Like that's pretty dope. I thought that was cool.
Would this make your worst of list, Eric? Right now you have Glass, The Perfection, and Pet Cemetery.
This is worse than Pet Cemetery.
All right, so this would bump Pet Cemetery.
Yeah, I don't think anything's bumping those other two. But yeah,
Glass.
Yeah.
Oh man, Glass.
I'm ready to do worst. I'm ready to do worst of the decade, John. It's called Glass.
Tee it up.
No, this thing is a fuck. I mean, like, worst can mean so many things, right? Like, it can just mean a thing you don't like. But this is like technically bad on so many, like, just like from a scripting standpoint.
And again, my only defense, I guess, at this point is like, I agree that it's technically bad. I still enjoyed myself a fair bit at multiple moments throughout my viewing. I don't know.
Great.
For what that's worth.
All right, guys.
Glass, on the other hand, woof.
I need somebody when that movie it's got to be out on DVD, right? I need somebody to make me a gif of the dude just standing in the lawn beating his chest like Tarzan, because that's what I want to see.
All right, we're sending Jason to reenact it in your front yard.
I've got to imagine that's out there somewhere.
All right, would you recommend this, Joe?
No.
Cece.
Sure, with some friends and some beers.
Yeah, that's fair. John.
Okay.
I'll say no.
Casey.
Yeah, cable and beers, and I think it's watchable.
Love it. All right, guys. Nice work. Let's take a quick
It's a
break.
waste of a six-pack right there.
Let's take a quick break.
Your life is a waste of a six-pack.
Oh,
damn!
My God.
Wow!
That was savage.
Jesus Christ, Cece.
Cece.
I love you, Joe.
Oh my God, Joe. Joe, do you need a ride?
Haven't you missed me?
Joe, do you
John,
need...
you got tweets? I'm gonna walk this off for a few minutes, all right?
Joe, do you need a ride to the burn unit? Because, oh my God.
I don't think that's a burn. It's just a flat-out, like...
Evisceration?
Step in front of a train or something.
Cece's been gone for a couple weeks, and Joe's been relatively well behaved.
She just ended your life for literally no reason whatsoever. No provocation. Just cut down.
Nope.
Savage.
Just wanted
Oh
to
my
let you know
God.
I'm still here.
Cece, I'm afraid of you now. That was terrifying. That was like, that hurt my feelings. Okay, guys, let's take a
You got that bumper queued up, Eric, or what?
So, anyway, actually, I have a very appropriate bumper queued up, Joe. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Somewhere in the middle of nowhere, America's #1 author just met his #1 fan.
I think Paul Sheldon might be in some kind of trouble.
You must be a good man. You could never have created such a wondrous, loving creature as Misery Chastain.
Very kind. She loves everything he's ever written.
Oh, Paul, what a poet you are.
Until now.
How could you?
Annie.
You murdered my Misery!
Directed by Rob Reiner.
Whatever you're thinking about doing, please don't.
From the novel by Stephen King.
Trust me, it's for the best. God, I love you.
Misery. Starts Friday, November 30th at select theaters.
Hi, I'm Denise Crosby from Pet Cemetery and Mortuary and The Walking Dead, and you are listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. I mean, serious question, guys. Can the show go on after that? Are we done?
I get it. No, we're cool. Co-workers, not friends. I get it.
Although, if I'm being honest, Joe, you were making it. Joe,
I love you so much.
Joe, if I'm being honest, you were making an unwarranted bald crack about me before the show. So I don't know. Maybe it was karma.
I don't think I told you your complete life is a waste, but you know.
That's true. That's very true.
It was just
Yeah.
set me up so perfectly.
Cool. No, it's cool. I mean, I gotta go upstairs and look my 4-month-old in the eyes after this. Like,
I tip my cat.
is this why you're not taking the bottle, sweetie? Because your father's a waste? Is this why?
It was just so good because you could tell, like, it popped into Cece's head and she was like, oh, I'm gonna say this, and she said it, but then, like, right after it came out of her mouth, she was like, that may have been too far.
She's like looking down, like doodling or something. Like, your whole fucking life's a waste, Joe.
Hey, Joe, why don't you go kill yourself?
I think the best was the other four of us going.
I mean, god damn, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's gonna take a while.
What was that show on MTV where people just battle rapped and insulted each other?
Wild Out with Nick Cannon.
Cece is wilding out.
Yeah. Just a Mariah Carey.
Your mama's so fat. You should go kill yourself. All right, guys. If you want to send Joe some life affirmations, I think you need some info@bloodygoodhorror.com is the email address. One email this week from Danny. Guys, I'm super excited for Cece. I'm going to grad school. But selfishly, I'm sad that it has meant that she's had less time to be on the show. Cece really gave the show an awesome new energy when she joined. You just saw a great example of that. Excited to see you all in Chicago this September. Hugs, Library O Congress. So there you go. I mean, I didn't say what kind of energy, Joe. I just said that was an energy.
An energy.
Yeah.
I'm feeling something.
Yeah. That's it. info@bloodygoodhorror.com. Joe, what's on Twitter?
So we use 2 different hashtags. More on that later. But the first one, hashtag BGH Classics. That's if you're listening to an old episode, something tickles your fancy, as far as a quote that we said or something, you can send it in. We got a couple here. First one from our friend Jake. That's at jhar0. And this is a little back and forth between Eric and John. So Eric says, are you threatening to take away the schnars? Like when my wife says, if I don't do something, she won't have sex with me? John replies, it's not like that, really. And Eric says, it sounds exactly like that, if I'm listening correctly.
The funny thing is that that actually has never happened. I think I was just channeling every sitcom ever that I'd ever seen.
And that was episode 285, Machete Kills. And then we got 2 here from my good friend Monica. That's mi corazón, mi amor. From now on, anyone that wants to talk shit about this movie, this is my new. Or sorry, anyone that wants to talk shit about. Okay, from now on, anyone that wants to talk shit about this movie, this is my new happy movie, and you can just go eat a bowl of dicks because I don't care. Episode 204. Do you want to guess what movie that is, Eric?
I already know. I already read all these.
Okay, it's Cabin in the Woods, and she posted her beautiful reenactment of the making out with a dead wolf.
I actually remember her doing that originally back. That's an old picture, I believe.
And then one more from Monica. Why don't you tell us your creepiest, breathy, mouth-breathing voice what Maniac is about? And that was Eric talking to John.
Also, that post also reminded me how much I did have an unfortunate resemblance to creepy Elijah Wood when I still had hair.
A little bit.
Oh yeah.
Listen,
Yeah,
listen,
250, the Maniac remake.
there's worse
I'm
people.
actually
There's worse
hoping Elijah
people.
Wood loses his hair. Just
There's worse
keep
people you
that
could
going.
look like. When there was that like celebrity face app going around last year, my friend put my picture in right after I had cut all my hair off, and it came back with, oh fuck, god damn it! I was just looking at it. He's the guy in that wine movie, Paul Giamatti.
Oh yeah.
Even
Yeah,
that, I
Paul
was like,
Giamatti's awesome.
speaking of people with an energy, like
Not so much a sex symbol though, I would say.
I mean, Joe, no one's accused that of me ever, so I'm not, I didn't lose it.
In
You don't know
billions, maybe. I think some folks might get in for that. I don't know.
Anyway, the other hashtag we use is AskBGH, and it was bound to happen one day. So sorry, AskBGH. That's if you've got a question. We post this up every week. You want to send it in. It can either be about the movie or just life advice that you need. And it was bound to happen one day, and of course it's like 3 weeks after my rant about how I hate when people don't use the hashtag. I forgot to include the hashtag in one of the posts on Twitter calling for questions, so of course we got a few without them. So this one time I will read them. Although
No one's even gonna rant at you, Joe. You should feel pretty good about that.
Oh, there's one in here, and the second question I am 100% sure is a troll because we'll get to it. But first up from @StaticMac, that's our friend Jacob. What should my college major be? Also, which school, U of H or A&M? I don't know. Don't go to school. Just drop out.
It sucks.
Notre Dame.
Wait, are we giving real advice?
Yeah, John. Yeah, he's gonna listen to us probably. So yeah, go for it.
I don't know. I feel like the schools you could do a
John,
coin
are we
flip
giving
on.
real advice? I don't know.
How about what's it? Computer science. You can't go wrong with computer science. You're gonna get a job with that.
I would say something practical.
Go into cybersecurity. It's super hot right now.
Honestly,
computers.
I would say multimedia design.
Yeah, learn how to make CD-ROMs. Joe will hook you up with somebody. He knows a guy. I mean, I had a communications degree, which is like, it's worked out for me okay because I've like busted my ass and made it work. But like, it's pretty stupid.
I mean, listen, if you have something that you enjoy doing,
yeah, no, sure. I mean,
I would take classes in it and see how it would feel to do that for the rest of your life, because as someone who works in their field that they've only ever dreamt about working in, when you start doing your hobby and the thing you're passionate about as your day job, it becomes not so great.
I mean, I would say honestly that college for me, the biggest thing I got out of college was not like specific things that I learned. It was more just the general, like, it opens your mind to new experiences. It sort of like begins to teach you how to think critically in different ways and start to be an adult. And then the most important thing is, like, a lot of places are not going to give you a job without the degree, right? So just get the degree, get a generalized degree, and like that's kind of like, again, communications, it was like I just did a little bit of everything. But then when I got out, I figured out what I wanted to do, and I just started doing it myself and learning it and teaching myself, and kind of that's like how I got into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like,
it is ridiculous how seriously we've taken this question.
Listen, he maybe he actually wants advice, Joe. I don't know.
You'd be surprised at how many people my age in the IT industry do not have IT degrees. They have history degrees,
Right, but they went
anthropology.
They had some kind of degree to get him in the door,
Right, exactly.
All right, so there you go. So this one, it's from Tam Honks at Maniac Cop 3, and if anyone answers this, I will lose my shit. He says, "When is The Wind out in the UK so I can finally listen to the podcast?" Well, Tam, let me jump on Google for you, you son of a bitch.
It's funny.
We're moving right on. At that's_trash, he asks, "Is this rash contagious?" And I would say most likely, without seeing a picture of it.
Always.
Point to yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes psoriasis, that's pretty common and not contagious, to my knowledge.
We can't all afford your fancy rashes, all right, that aren't contagious.
Fancy rashes.
Your fancy highfalutin New York City rashes. So here, possibly the most important question we've ever gotten from at Gulio Steensale. I don't know. Ghost of Alex
Jesus.
Jones's dog. This is, What challenges does Joe BGH face being the coolest and biggest muscled crew member of BGH?
First of all,
I'm back on the show and I say mean things to him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the rest of the crew coming at me with their jealousy and anger.
I'm just so jealous of the relationship that you and Kyle have that I have to say things like, I
Real.
just, all that rage and jealousy builds up, and then sometimes it's out. And
Are you just walk out of the room and go and talk to him like, you know what I did to your bitch boy?
Publicly, do you know what I did?
I want to see the video of your stupid little boy crying. Next up from our good friend who just joined Patreon is on Slack now. This is Lori Nylon Davinger. John, I think you said it better last week. So she asked, once upon a time in Hollywood, I assume she's referring to, was great. Mostly reimagining history is weird to me. In this case, it negates the Sharon Tate storyline, were we meant to be charmed?
just be careful what you're reading here.
I haven't seen the movie yet, man. Come on.
Yeah.
I did, John. So pretty much what she's asking is I don't know. I don't know if we can answer.
It's gonna
this.
break, Joe.
Listen, I guess here's my only point I'll make is that I think with Tarantino, that ship sailed when he had Brad Pitt like Tommy gun down Hitler in a movie theater. Like I think it's Tarantino.
Yeah.
He's just gonna make fucky history things, and we just have to deal with it.
I'm just gonna. We saw it last weekend, and it is legit awesome. Like I would put it up there with Pulp Fiction and some other stuff. Like I loved it.
I gotta see it.
Sure. I think I'm going on either Sunday or Monday.
Joe, I don't remember if this is a thing we share. I know we both share a mutual love of Brad Pitt, but I think lately I'm more into Leo.
Leo, yeah, he's
Leo's pretty great.
He is smoldering.
Yeah, he's great in this too. He's so good. This movie, it was like 2 hours 45 minutes, and like I didn't want it to end.
I could watch The Departed on a loop every day, Joe.
Yeah. Oh my God, Wolf of Wall Street! Like I could watch that over and over again, legit. Side note, not to get completely off track, I did see a movie by the name of Crawl this past weekend, and I listened to the episode. I am thumbs up with John there. I am definitely on his
fist pump.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Hate I missed it, guys.
Yeah. Cece, you gotta go. You gotta see it. Do yourself.
I told you I'd watch it when it's on demand. No, right, I'm not going to the theater.
Cece, you're fine. I wouldn't worry about it.
It's number 5 on Eric's best of list right now.
No, it's not. I'm going to delete that out as soon as it gets put into the website.
Next up from our good friend Biddle Brian, who I met at the Joe Bob event here in Chicago. That's Friendly Gayborhood Daddy Man. He put a lot of breaks in this, so I'm going to get real confused. Y'all are 100% lately, and the best part of my bike ride to work. Thanks. Question. Percentage or chance that Ari Aster's third film will feature a soul-crushing, small-child, bouncy castle death that leads to the parents/siblings to make bad choices that end in horror?
I mean, we can only hope.
Yeah. I mean, the only part of that that's not like super likely is the bouncy castle component. Every other part of it, almost definitely again.
I would love to see him have a bouncy castle.
Was it Dusty in our Slack today saying that he recommended Hereditary to a coworker, and then the coworker watched some scenes on YouTube and was like disturbed and couldn't sleep? I'm like, what are you doing? Recommending a friggin' Ari Aster movie to a normie? Are you insane? I love you, Dusty.
No, that's
Come
bold.
on, bro.
It's bold.
That's a good word for it.
That was a bold choice.
It's like, hey guys, you're sort of into horror? Well, I got this little ditty for you called Cannibal Holocaust. Let me know what you think. Definitely watch it with your kids and your parents, and have a blast.
How do you feel about Serbians? Next up from @co_W Flanagan. When I was a kid, my idols were old Ronnie Reagan and the Big Boss Man. I slept with pictures of him under my pillow.
There's actually a weird thread between those two characters that I actually really get.
They're both racist? I don't know.
Yeah, yes.
Day absorbed a lot of tears. Who was your idols growing up?
Growing up, who is my idol? That's a good
I don't know
question.
if don't know that I would describe myself as having had idols. I don't know.
I remember thinking Sam Malone was the first person I thought was like cool. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that guy, well, that
Oh,
guy's all right.
you know who I thought was the coolest person on earth? This is really obscure. Have you ever seen the movie Airborne? It was a Disney movie about a surfer kid who
Yes.
gets sent to the Midwest. I thought that
Dude, it's a
surfers
rollerblading movie.
in the
Yeah.
90s, I thought the surfers were like the coolest people on earth, and that dude was like to me the coolest surfer because that movie was on all the time.
That's an
Ooh.
interesting one.
You know who? Bruce Willis in Moonlighting. That guy was cool.
Dude, that answer is
I liked Debbie Harry a lot.
Joe. Joe, that answer ages you
There
real
you go.
bad.
My other one's gonna be Remington Steele.
Mine was a weird one because I was really big. I was a big musician back in the day through junior high, high school, and some of college, and I was really into Glenn Miller, as in the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
That also ages you, my friend.
Yes, it does. But well, I wasn't alive when he was playing, so I mean, I'm not that old.
Dude, and but a side note, if you've never seen Airborne, you have to see it.
It's a sweet movie.
It's
No,
incredible.
Jack Black's in that, right?
It
Like, he's
ends
the-
with a half an hour, like alpine downhill rollerblade race, and yes, Jack Black is in it.
It's called Devil's Backbone, I believe.
Down Devil's
is what they
Backbone.
call
That's
it.
right, John. It's
Yeah.
sick. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Here's one from.
Sorry. Also, young Seth Green in that movie with long hair.
That's right. Sophie, our very own Sophie, that's at Philly's Femme. She asks, "What was your first tattoo?"
Still haven't gotten one. Easy answer.
Frankenstein. It's my only one.
I got the hipster sparrows on my hips when I was 18.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Eric?
I got a Gemini symbol when I was 18.
Oof. I have a butterfly on my lower back.
Yes.
No, it was the Jason mask on my calf. All right, next up from @Ben_Jacobson Debacure. Is it weird to still have a favorite color as an adult? It's basically an aesthetic preference, right? Like, no one says you prefer a minimalist industrial style when choosing home decor. What are you, a child? I
No,
can
I
prefer
have a-
green if I want to.
Yeah, I have a
Jeff.
I have a favorite color. I'm all
Yeah.
We're also
Everybody
weird
has a
people.
favorite
Like
color.
we're also weird, like creative-y people. So I mean, like we're maybe not the ones that ask about decor.
I don't know, Joe or Eric, if you have this experience, but my kids talk and/or ask about favorite colors constantly.
Yeah,
It's literally like they're constantly evaluating each other's favorite color. They're telling me what my favorite color is. They're asking me what my favorite
Yeah, I
color
mean,
is. It is very important to them what your favorite
Not a
color
lot of
is.
discussion, but there's a lot of pink in this house. There's a
Well,
pretty clear obsession
Eric,
with pink.
wait until your younger daughter can talk, and then all they will talk
all
about
we're
with each
gonna
other
talk about.
is their favorite color.
Yeah.
It's nonstop.
There's a lot of favorite anything discussion, and then Mia's also gotten into this whole like which one would you rather, but it's always this like, would you rather be like run over by a train for like 13 hours or have like a bowl of ice cream? Like it's like obvious. Like,
13 hours.
I mean, Joe, obviously you always answer with the worst thing, right? Just to mess with her.
She's like testing you to make
Like-
sure you're not a
Like, oh, clearly the train. I don't. It's not even a contest.
Yeah.
all right, next up from @Chris Elaniate. I don't know. Whatever. What the hell does a pinch of baking soda look like? What's that in metric?
Self-explanatory, dude. You take your two fingers and you take a pinch and then you drop it.
Yeah, it's a pinch. Like it's just.
Yeah, it's just slightly bigger than a smidge.
I will say though, I've never seen a recipe where the baking soda level wasn't a teaspoon though. So like,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
heard,
well,
I've heard
'cause-
like a pinch of salt.
Usually with baking soda, you're baking, and
It's
with baking,
exact.
you need like very specific ingredient
Exact,
amounts.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be fair, Julia Child had big fingers.
All right.
That's
all
a
right.
real weird thing to say, buddy.
yeah.
You know, you ever
Big
seen
pinch.
2019, all right, buddy?
her husband is like a French chef, and he's just like an old dude now, and he has his own cooking show. He just like cooks, and like sometimes his grandkids come in. It's amazing.
Oh, that
It's,
sounds nice.
it's
No.
like
I
Jacques.
haven't seen it.
It's like Jacques Pepin is the guy's name.
This reminds me, I don't know, this will be quick, but last time my parents were in town, my father, for whatever reason, well, because Rachel Ray's from our hometown, he, for whatever
Oh.
reason, brought up the fact that he watches Rachel Ray's show, and then he pointed out that she's put on weight just out of nowhere. Just that was just like,
I have
Leslie and I
really,
sitting there like, all right, thanks.
I have really good Rachel Ray stories from a place that I worked that she also worked at that I cannot tell on air, Joe. But I'm happy to tell you at the meetup if you.
Dandy Nebola. All right, next up from and Jennifer, 100% poking fun at me here. Drop your linen. How many spastic rage verbatims will Joe do if I forget to add the Ask BGH tag to this question? What does it take to make him do the DiCaprio monkey face? What would he do if I use the Ask BGH tag but make a statement rather than ask a question? This is for research. Thanks.
Do you want to talk about how you screwed this up today, Joe?
Yeah, I
did.
Yeah. You know, Oh, did I mention the 5K yet, Eric? I'm just curious. Yeah.
We found out what it takes to have Joe make the monkey face tonight. Just have CC ruthlessly end his life.
Oh, that's a whole different face. Oh, like a stabbed in the back type
Again,
thing.
DiCaprio, the best.
Next up from @Hemosi. I'm probably saying all these wrong. How low are expectations for the Blair Witch video game coming out next month?
I didn't know there was one.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't know there was one.
So there were 3 previous Blair Witch PC games. I don't know if you're aware of this, Joe. There was a whole trilogy released in like the when it was like DOS/Windows days, like late 90s, early 2000s. I have all 3 of them autographed by Ed Sanchez in a box. They're pretty cool. But I don't know. It actually looks cool. It looks fine. I mean, it's super easy now with like the way modern engines are to just make like a creepy horror game where you're like skulking around with a flashlight. You know what I mean? They're probably gonna be fun.
Sounds great. Last but not least, from
Joe, you're in the spooky gaming channel. Okay, let's not pretend like you don't ever play games.
I when I was out on paternity, I played Red Dead Redemption 2 for like constantly, but now I haven't touched it in like a month and a half. I don't know where you guys find the time to do this with all the housewife shows on and all that. Next up from last actually from our good friend Skizbot. Totally 100% not talking about my day last Monday, but have you ever gone to work hungover and were you able to successfully hide it and power through the day?
I went to work and threw up on the front steps and then just poured some water on it and then went to work and pretended like I was sober the whole day.
Yeah, I've been part of companies that have like really crazy holiday parties, and I'm one of these people that's like, I'm showing up to work no matter what. Like I think it is inappropriate to not show up to work just because you've been drinking.
Yeah,
I have
John. Yeah, that's
that's drunk the next day at work. Like it is like 100% drunk.
Yeah.
I would say the worst I've been was I remember sitting outside of the subway station on 42nd Street, like nervous to get on the train because I felt so sick, and then finally made it to work. Programmed my little CD-ROM heart out and vomited in the bathroom at work.
I've never really
little CD-ROM heart out.
I don't think I've ever really gone through that kind of hangover. I've gone through more like we did the 10-year, and I didn't take Monday off, so like flew back Sunday night, and like so it wasn't the first day hangover, but it was the second day hangover, which in some ways is even more insidious for me. It's like the sickness is gone, but now you just feel like dead to the world, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I work in IT. Yeah. I've had nights where we got drunk at work and still work long enough to be hungover while we were still there. So
there you go.
That makes me feel bad.
So that's a yes for all of us. And that's it for tweets.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, man.
info@bloodygoodhorror.com. We're also on Twitter @BGHorror. I'd like to shout out our Patreon again, patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror. You can get back episodes of this show in a fancy Google Drive that you can plug right into an app that'll let you listen to them like regular shows. You can get a live streaming video version of this show every week, and that doesn't have to be watched at the time that it airs. The link still works afterwards. And also, like, if you sign up now, John, I think you'll get this new T-shirt we're making, right? If you sign up at a certain level, at the
10 bucks and more.
Yeah. So
but you can come to the Friday meetup at any level and get some free booze and food.
Sign up for $10 now. You'll get the shirt when we release it. You'll get back episodes. You'll get the location of the super secret meetup. What more could you need in your life, John?
I mean, nothing, presumably, but
yeah.
So, 0.
Probably some other stuff.
Yeah, don't forget 5K coming up, the meetup in September in Chicago. We really want to see you guys out there. So there's a little flurry of activity on the Slack today. People reserving hotels and making their plans, and yeah, it's good times. I'm excited. And all that info is on the site now. bloodygoodhorror.com. There's a landing page. So there you
It's
go.
there.
Joe, you have any parting retorts to CC?
Nah, I'm gonna take next week off though. I just think,
Joe, I still
sit it
love
out.
you. You're
gonna
still
sit it
my
out.
favorite.
I just
still want
picture-
to share my husband with you.
I need some time.
I just picture Joe doing the Peter Griffin, just being like, oh,
I'll be okay.
oh gosh. All right, guys. I know I'm going to forget that this happened, and then I'm going to listen back to it. I'm going to have the same reaction. It's going to do it for Hellboy, guys. We got a list of stuff on video we're going to check out next week. We're not sure what that is, so follow us on Twitter so you can find out. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you next week.
See you.
Bye.
I'll see you around, guys. I guess.
Bye-bye.